set Zayl on the stone floor with surprising care, only to see the boots that surely belonged to the legendary Caribitis. But Caribitis was not yet looking at him. The other Rothmanian gazed at the possessed soldiers with what only his counterpart could tell was a hint of frustration. He held out his hand, and one of them gave Zayl's dagger and the much-damaged pouch containing the skull of Humbar Wessel. Caribitis brought the pouch up to eye level. Without opening it, he sensed what was within.
Amusing, but useless.
You find me amusing? Said the mercenary's hollow voice. If I had jaws, I'd bite your nose off. See how amused you'd be then. Their captor's eyes narrowed.
Be silent.
The curse that Humbar had just begun cut off in mid-sentence. Setting the pouch on the floor beside him, Caribitis inspected Zayl's blade.
Finally attuned.
He complimented.
A particularly well-crafted piece, too.
The other Necromancer said nothing. Satisfied, Caribitis glanced at the soldiers.
Your task is done. You are dismissed. Go.
The soldiers stayed where they were.
Allow me, sorcerer.
Boomed a voice both familiar and yet not.
Go. I will summon you when I need you.
Like marionettes, the men turned as one and left. Pushing himself up, Zayl beheld Lord Aldric Jitan, but as he had never seen him before. Jitan stood by the altar and by the limp, pale corpse of Sardak Nasardo, one hand holding forth the moon of the spider, the other clutching the bloodied sacrificial dagger. Aldric seemed twice as large as Zayl remembered him, and his hair flew as if electrified. His eyes blazed crimson, and his skin was the color of the ivory part of the artifact. Zayl's higher senses noted a black aura about the man, one with no human origin. Smiling at the prisoner, Lord Jitan cavalierly thrust the dagger back into Sardak's ruined chest. Only then did Zayl see how terribly the body of Celine's brother had been butchered. In addition to drawing the blood, they also cut out the heart. In the process, the noble and his companion had shoved aside the rest of Sardak's innards as if so much offal. An unexpected urge to beat the noble into the floor filled Zayl, but he managed to smother most of the emotion. Yet, as he noted Caribitis' earlier frustration, so too now did the older Necromancer see what coursed through the younger.
An unseemly display. You let attachment color your efforts and lead you away from the proper course of the balance.
At least I have not forgotten entirely to what I have devoted myself. Caribitis sniffed.
Nor have I. I am more resolute than ever that the balance be maintained. I have made sacrifice after sacrifice to ensure that.
The younger Rothmanian dared sit up. He indicated the carnage and the insidious creatures that had once been men. This is your notion of sacrifice, Caribitis? What has become of you? Surely you have fallen prey to the life tap. His words actually made Caribitis laugh.
Is that what you think, young one? That I, who strove against demons and dark spellcasters for so long, absorbed the life forces of too many evil ones and thus became them? Perhaps someone less so, But I am Caribitis. Am I not?
Zayl sought to rise, but an invisible force kept him in a kneeling position. He glanced at Aldric, who looked like a child with a new toy, a very deadly and powerful new toy, and one whose repercussions the noble surely did not comprehend. If not that, then what? What has changed? The gray-haired necromancer bent closer.
Nothing has changed, young Zayl. I still hold the same belief I held the day I accepted the mantle. There's nothing more important than the balance, and I do what I must to keep it even. You of all should be able to appreciate that.
He straightened.
When first I sensed your presence and realized that it was you, I briefly thought of asking you to join me in this crusade, but almost immediately saw that you had become blinded, that you were swept up in the same terrible mistakes so many our brothers and sisters were.
And that is? Asked Zayl, seeking some manner by which to escape the spell and stop this travesty before it was too late.
That there is two sides to the balance. There must always be.
Caribius took on the aspect of a teacher.
How otherwise could it even be so called so?
Good and evil. Yes, you preach nothing I do not know.
Then let me tell you this.
At that moment, Lord Jitan called.
Is this necessary? The next phase is...
The armored spellcaster glanced at his partner.
The next phase is still minutes away, my lord. And I would have Zayl, who deserves it most, understand why I do what I must. After all, for the sake of the balance, he let his own parents perish.
Lord Jitan let out an eager gasp.
Did he really?
Zayl felt as if Caribius had taken the sacrificial dagger and cut out his heart. Shaking his head vehemently, he cried, I did no such thing!
You knew it otherwise. You know that all understood that.
Caribius forced his counterpart's face toward his.
I knew them both. You know, fought beside them before you were born. I can say without hesitation that they were very proud of your decision. At least, after the pain stopped and they moved on to the next plane of existence.
Stop it! Stop your lies! But the senior Rathmanian went on.
If there's good, there must be evil to balance it out. Your act is an example. You had to do what resulted in their deaths because it was the correct thing to do. However, too often, all our kind does now is fight Hell's minions. Think very carefully, Zayl. All that for the side of good. The imbalance is growing overwhelming. Something must be done to bring the world back to an even state.
And at last Zayl did understand what Caribius meant. Understood it and adorned it. For centuries the Rathmanians had fought the servants and powers of the prime evils who sought to sway the mortal plane completely to their will. In Zayl's mind, never could enough be done. A world dominated by the prime evils was a world forever out of balance, and therefore lost. Yet, Caribitis, whose triumphs over the darkness were legion, now believed that he and the others had done too much. He obviously felt that the world had slipped too far toward the light, which according to the principles of Rathma could lead humanity to a stagnation and a loss of conscience as terrible in its own way as anything falling to the darkness might. Over the centuries, there had been much debate among the Rathmanians as to the limits of their involvement in the affairs of the world, but never could Zayl recall anyone suggesting anything as mad as what Caribitis proposed. "What I did," he murmured, "what happened is in no manner equivalent to what you are doing, Caribitis."
Your mother and father might beg to differ.
Without realizing what he did, Zayl leapt to his feet. "My parents perished because of my mistake. I am the one who destroyed the ship and all aboard. I take the blame for that, just as I always have." His skeletal hand caught a startled Caribitis by the throat. The other necromancer gasped and tried to pull the fleshless fingers free.
My lord!
He grated.
If you would...
An oppressive force tore Zayl's fingers from his adversary's throat before slamming the younger necromancer to the floor again. Try as he might, Zayl could not so much as move a finger. Caribitis rubbed his right throat.
It is a pity you cannot see reason.
He held Zayel's dagger ready.
I'm truly sorry for what I must do. I have the highest respect for your capabilities, Zayl, even if they are misdirected.
Make your choice.
Yours are misdirected. The prone figure managed.
His will's impressive.
Proceed.
Remarked Lord Jitan.
Yes, after he is dead, I won't bother summoning his shade. It would be too stubborn.
Caribitis tisked.
I find my fellow Rothmanians make terrible servants. His parents were much the same after I raised them up. I was forced to send them back quickly. Such a shame, truly.
Zayl let out an enraged gurgle at the newest revelation, the most he could muster under the relentless onslaught by the empowered noble. Leaning over him, the armored necromancer said,
Fear not. You will soon be able to discuss guilt and motives with him. Farewell.
Zayl braced himself. Slain by his own dagger, there would be no hope for resurrection, even should some trustworthy necromancer find him in time. The chamber suddenly darkened. It was not, however, any simple shadow that fell upon the room, for instead of black, it was a deep but very obvious crimson. From Aldric, there was a stunned oath. From Caribitis, a sharp intake of breath. Zayl sensed the other Rothmanian withdraw the dagger.
That's it, then, isn't it?
Called the noble.
The second phase of the moon! Yes.
Caribitis' footsteps marked his departure from his frozen adversary.
The cycle of the moon of the spider is at its apex. It is time for you to receive the full gifts of Astrogha.
Don't. Breathes Zayl, trying to warn Aldric. Not what it seems. But Lord Jitan did not hear him. Still grinning, he positioned himself next to the altar. On the other side, Karibias thrust Zayl's weapon into his belt, then pulled free the sacrificial blade. He threw off with the dagger, its point covered with Sardak's cold, congealing life fluids, to the noble.
Let me touch the center of the pattern with this.
Explained the Rothmanian to Aldric.
Then, hold the artifact directly over your head. Make certain that it almost touches your skull.
Try as he might, Zayl could utter no more warnings. He watched helplessly as Jitan complied. The moment the blood touched, the arachnid design stirred, as if alive. At the same time, a crackling sound like a mixture of thunder and lightning filled the chamber. Outside, the wind howled. Yet, through a tiny crack in the ceiling, the light of the moon somehow shone down, and struck the artifact at the very same point that the blood had. The electrifying aura around Aldric increased 100-fold. He stood like a wild banshee, his expression monstrous in its delight. Everywhere the transformed servants bowed their horrific heads low to the ground. Their hisses sounded almost like words, or rather, one word.
Astrogha.
Unbelievable!
Lord Jitan shouted gleefully.
I can feel the power coursing through my system. I can sense where each of the spiders are. I can feel them emerging from the shadows to march upon the city. I can feel...
His mouth suddenly went slack. The sphere above his head had cracked open. And, in perfect imitation of the image on the outside, 8 long, vile limbs ending in blood-red talons stretched down and caught the noble's head in a vice-like grip.
Sorcerer! Karibias! What's the meaning of this? Something's gone dreadfully wrong! Help me!
But Karibias merely stepped back and watched.
Nothing has gone wrong. Everything is as it should be. I'm very sorry that this must be done. But this must be done. But...
Lord Jitan got no further. The spider's limbs thrust hard into his head. He shrieked for several seconds, his cry dying off in a pitiful sob. Blood spurted from the wounds, and although it was clear that by the end he had been dead, he did not fall any more than the soldiers in the forest had. The chamber continued to crackle with otherworldly energies. Zayl felt the pressure holding him to the ground lessen, but not enough to allow him to rise. Karibias came around the altar, still holding the sacrificial dagger. He approached Aldric Jitan. The spider that continued to emerge from within the sphere was several times larger than the previous ones and had 8 clusters of 8 burning orbs atop its squat head. Sharp, tearing mandibles, not fangs, sprouted from its mouth. From within Karibias' cloak, his own spider crawled up upon the Necromancer's shoulder. Zayl could not help notice the similarities, even if perhaps his rival did not.
Zaro Kawa! Moyan! Tora Astrogha!
The gray-haired Rothmanian intoned. He drew an 8-sided image with the dagger, then added,
Historian Dormu Astrogha!
Myriad energies played around the noble. The huge spider set itself in place. Yet unlike the smaller ones, it did not simply sit atop, but enveloped a good portion of Aldric's skull. And from Aldric's twisted lips, there came a horrific sound, laughter such as no human had ever uttered.
I am to this mortal plane. Return.
Hissed an awful voice not at all akin to the noble's.
I am from the foul prison. Flee.
Caribitis knelt before the figure.
Welcome back, my lord Astrogha. Welcome back.
But the thing within the shell that had once been Lord Aldric Jitan did not even look at Caribitis. Both the man's and the spider's many eyes looked instead at Zayl. With hunger.